community.
Join our annual Arts and Wellness Festival to connect, create, and celebrate with the Soultry sisters.
In 2023, we explored what it means to cultivate your sanctuary.
Our 3-day festival highlights BIPOC, women, and queer artists and wellness practitioners based in San Diego.
Each year, we collaborate with featured guest artists to build our festival program, which includes creative expression classes, wellness workshops, and performances.
Day 1 of the festival is all about connection. We begin our festival with a social mixer where attendees enjoy music, dancing, and have an opportunity to meet other attendees, guest artists, and us.
Day 2 of the festival is all about creating. Our arts and wellness workshops give folks an opportunity to explore, embrace, and embody what cultivating your sanctuary means to them.
Day 3 of the festival is all about celebration. There is music, dancing, performances, and an open mic for attendees to share. Without a doubt, we always close with a dance party and teach folks the Soultry strut.
We are grateful for all the memories made each year at our Summer Solstice Arts and Wellness Festival, and we can't wait to see you next year.
In the meantime, remember to keep living vibrant and shining bright. Hey, hey, hey. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hello. If y'all can't tell, I'm in a different place.
For a good reason, though, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to see if I could get this virtual background up.
It's because it's next to my virtual background.
Cute. Let's see. Okay.
Oh, look, that's cute.
Okay. Because I was like, I need something to go with this. It looks almost like my Pisces dream space.
It does. If y'all haven't guessed, we are all about aesthetics. We love to have a vibe, a curated look. And so I'm happy, Tony, you found one that matches your shirt. And I always know the background because it's supposed to be this. But now I want to play around. I might want to let y'all think I'm somewhere else.
So first and foremost, happy birthday, co-founder Alyssa AJ.
Thank you. It feels so good to be here. I heard some people were like, some people saw me today and I was working earlier and they're like, you want to work on your birthday? And I was like, well, I love what I do. So it doesn't feel.
Yeah, that's how we're different. I'm like, I do not labor on my birthday. I would rather not labor for the whole week of my birthday, but definitely my day, I definitely usually take off or I'm off. So
Yeah. For me, like the spring break for a lot of I'm a teaching artist is next week. So I plan to make next week more of like my curated birthday, like I'm doing less kind of thing. But so I'm happy to be here for this book club, sharing space with y'all. Let me start. I am sipping on a margarita. Okay, your girl's sipping on a strawberry margarita for her birthday, and I'm tuning in from sunny San Diego. It is sunny, and usually on my birthday it rains. So let's keep this energy. Thank you, Geneva, for the birthday wishes in the comments.
yes. And so, if you want to celebrate with us this weekend, we have our Silent Disco fundraiser this Friday, March 22nd at New Village Arts, the Dia Hurston Performing Arts Center. And we're so excited to have Sierra Dominique, who we've had DJ our Twerker Treat event and for Halloween. We've had her DJ for our festival, our summer solstice, solstice. I kind of like that solstice. We need to add that to something.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna have DJ Sierra Dominique there. There's gonna be some sweet treats. There's gonna be a silent auction, and we're also doing a festival ticket giveaway if you come to the event. So I will put the link. Oh, there you go. You already put the link in the chat. And then also, if you just go to our website, soultrysisters.com/events, it has all of our upcoming events there. Because if Friday doesn't work for you, you can also celebrate Alyssa's birthday and the spring equinox on Sunday, March 24th. We're going to be at Community Roots Farm. And We're going to be part of their spring equinox gathering. So, Soultry Sisters, we're going to lead our Soulscape mindful movement practice. And then, Kizzy, if you all have been to our festival or our library mini retreat, then you experience her sound bath, sound journey experience. So, she's one of the collaborators for Sunday, and there's going to be a bonfire, and then you just get to check out the farm. So, there's going to be a lot of awesome things, and it's in Oceanside. So, we're really excited to partner and uplift amazing people and organizations in our community. And so, yeah, there's so much exciting things that's happening.
Yes, and folks are asking me like, AJ, Alyssa, what do you want for your birthday? And I was like, there's nothing more that I want for my birthday than for you to donate and support what I love. And one of my passion projects, which I share with my sister, is Soultry Sisters. So if you're unable to make our Silent Disco social fundraiser, we'd love if you could donate to support the work that we do. All the donations that we are fundraising for right now is for our annual festival that is happening January 21st to 23rd. It's going to be in Carl.
June.
Sorry.
I know we're just so excited, y'all. We're just so excited.
Not January, June 21st to 23rd. And we are fundraising so that we can continue to offer our festival tickets on a sliding scale and also scholarship. Last year, we scholarship 70% of our attendees' tickets. So we hope to continue to do that, if not more. So join us in our mission to bring arts and wellness to all, and especially to North County, San Diego, where we reside.
So there's so many exciting things happening. So go to our festival page on our website to join the interest list. There's a bunch of people who started joining the interest list. So don't worry, we will send out information very soon with tickets that are going live. So we want to celebrate springtime, this new season, with all of this abundance of energy, joy, and community with all of you.
Yes, so many things. And also, we are continuing our book club featuring The Artist Way. So, if you are tuning in to continue working through this book, we are on week 10.
Mhm.
Recovering a sense of self protection. We'll be doing our check in first and talking about that. If you are new to us, Sultry Sisters, thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe our Instagram and Facebook page because we stream on those as well. And if you're new to this book, you can listen to this conversation just like a podcast. You can also engage because a lot of the things that we talk about really resonate with folks who are really trying to live more creative lives. We talk about soul care here at Soultry Sisters. And a lot of this work, this spiritual creativity that we're trying to cultivate, really align with the work that we do here because we always talk about creative expression. We always talk about finding ways back to ourselves through writing, through different practices. So definitely, if you haven't read this book, listen, and maybe this will be something you want to add to your not weekly, your annual, whatever book reading list. The margaritas undone gotten to me. I'm unable to hear you, Tony. Is it just me? Let us know in the chat with a thumbs up if you're able to hear us. If you can hear me, put Alyssa in the chat. If you can hear Tony, put Tony in the chat because I can't hear her.
Now, can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay. I think it somehow got connected to my phone and then okay. I'm back. But yes, if y'all are tuning in, definitely share what you're tuning in from and what you're sipping on.
And as you start to,
In San Diego, sunny San Diego. It's been a little bit rainy, but then mostly sunny. I was sunbathing earlier And then today I have a new mixture of tea. I have green tea with lemon and then lemon strawberry tea in my Philippines cup.
Oh, I love it. It really does match that background. We have Geneva tuning in from LA. Okay. There's an art exhibit that I want to check out in LA in the Arts District. I wonder if you're going up there for your artist date. Hmm. Yeah, y'all. So let's do a little check in. How was your week? What's up with y'all? I have some special news to share, which is why I want to initiate this conversation. But this past Friday, I found out that I got into grad school.
Yay!
Yay!
Congratulations. So
If
share
you've been
in the chat your congratulations.
Yeah, if you've been a part of this book club, I have been talking about that journey. And honestly, the artist way has helped me not get in the way of that goal. So this will definitely, I'll definitely talk more about my process of applying for grad school and the journey towards grad school in this chapter. But yeah, I just wanted to share that wonderful news. I'm super excited. It's like the best birthday gift to be starting a new chapter. It's also the new astrological year. So happy new year, astrological siblings. That's very, very exciting as we celebrate the spring equinox.
Yes. So we have Geneva sharing congrats, Kyle as well. And then we also have Kyle checking in from Wheaton and happy birthday, AJ. Yes.
Thank you.
All the celebrations. And yeah, feel free to share in the chat any exciting news you all want to share with us. Um, Nothing too crazy for me. I'm just now in California for the next couple of weeks. So that's fun. So for those of you who think I live in California, I actually do not. I'm bi-coastal, so I guess I'm on both coasts. So California, San Diego, and then also Washington, D.C. So I go back and forth. And so this is a time when I'm back. And then, of course, I'm back for the festival. So if you don't catch me this week at our events, then you can catch me in June for the Summer Solstice Festival. So yeah, we definitely have a lot of things that are exciting and that are coming up since it's now spring. It's just like the Mama Earth that like now, flowers are blooming. That's kind of how we are behind the scenes in Soultry. We have a bunch of exciting things happening behind the scenes and that we are sharing with you all soon as well. And that kind of goes into our theme for the new year. So this past quarter, right? It's crazy that's been January until now mid-March that we've been doing this book club, but our theme was creative care. And I think that also goes with the spring equinox of just like leaning into the creations and like I think of Mama Earth of like creating, the plants, the flowers, all of the things that are blooming around us. And just kind of like we are now, week 10 in our creative recovery. I'm sure, as we'll get into today, that there's plenty of things blooming and blossoming in our journeys as well.
I definitely feel like that's happening for week 10,
Mhm,
starting in January, kind of, recovering that sense and like excavating things that have been piled on top of our ability to really identify as artists again. I'm starting to feel uh that impact of
mhm,
lightness. I mean,
mhm,
and also like just the acknowledgement, like just the awareness, y'all, of able to like mitigate um the the mitigate the excuses that I can make for not making time for myself. It's like, wow,
mhm,
like it is possible to have a life where I'm doing something creative every week. It is really possible to have a life
mhm,
where I invite more play into my schedule, even if it is for like the 30 minutes or
mhm.
an hour, or how Tony and I were outside enjoying the sun before this live. We're really just making the most out of whatever time we have to enjoy like the sun, like the simple things. And I'm starting to see the world a lot different than like art as a thing that like just witnessing creator, like you were talking about, witnessing the flowers, the sun, the
Mhm.
sand. Hmm.
Yeah, definitely, which we'll get into in our check-in in a second, but yeah, I feel like with this journey, I've received so much more than what I expected. It's like in a different way because yeah, I think before I personally did kind of relate creativity with kind of this productivity of like it's something because even that I do crafts, even like a craft is like a thing. And so it's nice to just tap into creativity as just like caring for myself, like whatever that
Hmm.
is, whether that's a walk, whether that's, eating food that makes me feel good, whether that's napping, right? There was like a week when we did the social media deprivation that I napped more than I usually would in a week. So different things like that that I don't think typically in society we associate with creativity or our like creative acts. And
Hmm.
yeah, I'm just really grateful to have this journey and with you all joining us. Like, there's folks that join live that we really appreciate your comments and your insights. And there's folks that also watch the replays. Like, when we look at the views after each week, like, there's plenty of folks who watch the replays and comment that way. There's folks who just find us through the internet and like have connected with this book of the artist way, whether that's their 10th time doing it, their first time, whether they've never heard of it and they just see us doing this and talking about creativity or just interested. So I appreciate that this book club is really like a gift that keeps on giving, honestly. And even though we're week 10 and only have three more sessions of the book club left, including this one, I'm just grateful that now we've like opened up this like space and this like magic of the artist way that I'm sure we'll see even more folks tap into it after this.
Definitely. And I want to share because we do have folks that are commenting from um, Instagram. Soultry Mama says that she's tuning in from San Juan Capistrano, and she says, "Happy birthday, Alyssa, Lizzie, AJ." She's addressed all my names. Thank you.
Lil Rilla, Chubby Checkers, who
Yeah,
else?
all of it. And I also want to point out, so Tony the other day was like, "Oh, I'm gonna finish this other thing and then I'm gonna take a nap." I was so proud of Tony. I was like, "Oh, she's gonna take." It was Monday. You're like, "I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna
Yes.
take a nap." And then when she woke up, she really woke up from nap because her hair was all like, she had the nap hair. She was like, she had been asleep. So yeah, I was really like, because we've been doing the artist way on different coasts, like obviously we come in and we do these check-ins and we share like how our lives are being changed by this work, and that we were covering like a different sense of self, a more creative sense of self. And I got to witness Tony casually saying, "I'm gonna go take a nap in the middle of the day." So I see the change in you, sis.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, I guess we can check in with you all too. So now we're in week 10 out of 12. So we're literally at the end. It's like when I read books, usually when I get to this part of the book, I'm like savoring it and cherishing every moment because I know it's gonna end soon. So I just am like, oh, we're at that point where it's like when you're in school, it's like the last couple of weeks before summer when you're like, okay, we're just here. Let's ride this wave. So, of course, we start off with checking in about our morning pages. So, how many days this week did you do your morning pages? Has reading your pages changed your writing? And are you still allowing yourself to write them freely? So, of course, as usual, feel free to comment below whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram.
Yes, I can answer first. I got 5 out of 7.
Mhm.
So that's really good, more than last week. And then, has reading your pages changed your writing? Um, Not really. It hasn't changed my writing. It's only like it's only confirmed that like, yeah, my writing has already changed due to the morning pages, because I used to like
Mhm.
journal thinking like I'm going to read this again. So I'd like really, I'll be writing my story back to myself thinking I'm going to
Yeah.
read a story about myself. So I'd filter it. So no, it hasn't changed because I've accepted it being like non-filtered kind of everywhere. Sometimes I write in bullet points. Sometimes I write in full sentences. Sometimes it's legible. Sometimes it's not.
Mhm.
Um, and am I still allowing myself to write them freely? Yes. And growth, y'all. Today is the first day that I did morning pages at a table. and not my
Oh,
bed.
okay, look at
Yeah,
you. Okay.
I made myself coffee, I put my fuzzy robe on, and I sat at a table, and I wrote, and I actually got through the 3 pages, like, easily, so I'm like, "Oh, it really is the bed that's, like, stopping
Yeah,
me,"
it
and
just depends, yeah.
and I'm like, "This whole time, like, Kyle has shared it, like, you have shared it, like, the crooked neck, like, it's not really ideal," and I was like, "No," like, I was just resistant, not resistant in a like a meaning, like in an intentional way, but just I just like this is what feels good to me. And then I
Mhm,
did the different act and I'm like, actually, this feels better. And I wrote 3 pages
mhm,
and it was nice because I also was drinking a warm beverage and in a fuzzy thing.
mhm,
So it was like it also, I think, changing my orientation, it made me
mhm.
write more. Yeah, so that was interesting. So has there
Yeah,
been a change? Yes. Me sitting at a
mhm.
table.
Yeah, which kinda goes into one of the earlier weeks we talked about, like, your environment, right? So, like, even a small change, like sitting at a desk or even just upright, right? Because there's some days I write, like, literally, like, laying down, and then there's other days I'm upright. So, yeah, I think it like, your environment does impact, how free you can feel when writing, so that makes sense, but that's nice. Um, and okay, go to the chat first. So Geneva sharing, I can't believe it's been 10 weeks already. It feels like we just started, right? I feel like I'm like, wow. In the beginning, I think I said this last week too, but beginning, I was a little bit like, oh, are people going to want to stay the course? Is this overwhelming for folks to already know it's 12 weeks? But it's so great to see all these people complete it with us, right? Like we're in this together, and all the people who have come in at different points. It's been so I just appreciate hearing about people's journeys as well. And then Geneva shares, I did 7 out of 7 days this week. Feeling very triumphant and proud of myself for that. Awesome. Congratulations. You should be very proud of yourself. That's awesome. And for me, this week I did 6 out of 7 because yesterday, it was either yesterday or the day before. No, it was Monday. I forgot to do them because that's like wake up super early. We were up late the night before working on a grant, and I had a work
Yeah.
meeting the next morning. And then I kept being like, "Oh, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it." And then I ended up taking my nap. And then,
And then we used to see a
um,
show.
yeah. And then I literally had the journal on my bed at night, and then I just fell asleep because I was like, "Oh, I'll just do them in bed before I go to sleep." I knocked out. So that was the day I didn't do it. But what I appreciated this week was I was having vivid dreams, which I'm realizing even without my tart cherry juice, I'm still having vivid dreams. So I don't know. I guess that maybe right now I've just unlocked dreamy space. Um, but I woke up and I feel resistant to write right away because I'm like, I'm still asleep. Like my eyes are still literally like shut. But then I'll wake up and I'm like, Tony, you need to write your dreams now because then I forget if I wait like 30 minutes or something and go back to sleep. I forget. So I've been like half asleep writing my dream log. I call it a dream log in my journal. And some days that takes up most of the pages. And then other days it's just like a little blurb. And then I'll start just the other stream of conscious writing. But that has kind of helped me stay consistent as well as like having the vivid dreams and then being like, oh, I want to document them. So that
Mhm.
helps me like just roll out of bed or over on the bed and just at least write it down. And those days is usually really not legible, but I'm just trying to get it down. Because one, like my spiritual practices I do has me reminded that I should write my dreams down. And then my therapist also recently was like, "Oh, okay, like you should write those down." So that's something that had helped me too. So I don't know if any of y'all have like dreams that like when you wake up, you're like, just remember them. Like that helped me put them on the page, like as part of your morning page.
Yes, I have too been having vivid dreams, but I unfortunately have been doing the thing of going back to sleep and not
Yeah.
writing them down immediately. And like I literally this morning I was like, I know I had a dream and I don't
Hmm.
remember it fully, but and I wrote down like colors and different things that I remembered. So it's like
Hmm.
that's when sometimes it's bullet points, like the dreams had these
Yeah.
things in it. But yeah, it's so true. It's
Hmm.
so like once you wake up, like even sometimes too, because like you're kind of groggily waking up and you remember it, but by the time if my journal's not, and I think that's why they'd say put it on your bedside because if it's not
Hmm.
on your bedside, like if I put my foot to the ground and go get it, like it's already gone. it's
Mhm.
like already gone.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So having it right on my nightstand has definitely helped, to get it just off my head out of my head and onto the page. And then Kyle shares, "I had 6 out of 7 pages this week, but the pages are still helpful." Awesome. Yeah, like, I feel like even if it's one day, even if there's no days, but you think about it, because sometimes I think the day I didn't write, I was thinking about stuff in my head. I'm like, "Girl, this is why you have the page. Just write it here. Don't be putting your head," because that's what I'm realizing too, like, week 10 now, is I'm realizing the value of getting it out of my head and just, like, out, and it just helps me. Even if it's stuff that, like, the reading oh,
Mhm.
the other question was like, "Oh, has reading your pages changed anything?" I don't think it's changed anything. I think for me, I was appreciative of, like, how far we've come on this journey. Because like, the first couple of, like, entries when we started, I was like, "Okay, we're doing this morning page thing," and it was very, like, not a habit. I was, like, thinking about it and, like, kinda sometimes writing my process of, like, "Okay, this is helping this thing," or I'm waking up, like, I especially wrote about being tired a lot in the beginning, which I'm not
Mhm.
tired now, but, it was, like, almost every day in the beginning, I was like, "I'm tired, I'm supposed to be working on my sleep routine." So now I've noticed that I have a better sleep hygiene. I'm still working on it, but I noticed that I will still write about how I slept, but it doesn't feel as like, "Oh my god, I'm doing this thing wrong because I'm supposed to wake up feeling, like, peppy," or whatever. So that was a I appreciated, like, reflecting on that of, like, my sleep journey, if that makes sense.
Mm. No, definitely. Um, I've started writing my Geneva shares, I've started writing my dreams down as soon as I wake up too, otherwise, I'll
Mm,
forget and I only remember in flashbacks, like, "That's so
mhm.
Raven."
Yes.
Sometimes things come back, you're like, "I think this was in a
Mhm.
dream."
Yes. I feel that too. Um, so yeah, thank you all for sharing. And then now we'll check in with our artist date. So, did you do your artist date this week? Let yourself do an extra one, which is kind of hard because I guess now we're checking in at the end of week 10, but feel
Mhm.
free to do another one and it can still count as week 10. And then, what did you do for your artist date and how did it feel?
Mm. I will share that I did not get an artist date in this week.
Mm.
Um, but I did go on an artful adventure with my sister on
Yes.
Monday. We got to see Chicken and Biscuits, a play in Oceanside, and I had went to the opening show and it was amazing. And I was like telling my sister, I was like, "You have to come see this show. It is so good. You will cackle." And y'all, when we went on Monday, we did cackle. It was an amazing experience to experience with my sister again, and also like to see a show that soon again the second time. It was really nice to catch different parts of the story, and that's why I know, like, I always know it's good to see a show more than once, and sometimes economically it's hard to do that. So we went on industry night. So it was a
Mhm.
night that most theater artists will be able to go see it because Mondays are usually dark in the theater world. So lots of people were there, and it was like a cool experience.
Yeah, it was nice to go there for that kind of day too, to, like, just see folks that we know, and it was, like, a more intimate kind of crowd too, and the show was amazing, so, so good. So if you're in the San Diego region or if you just wanna travel to San Diego, this weekend is the closing weekend, so the 24th of March is the last day, but it's so, so good. We were laughing, it was just a great show, and the acting is just really well done, and it's just really fun. It's kind of like those like a Black family movie, like that kind
Mhm.
of genre. So it's like feel good. There's moments about like family healing, but it's also like funny. So
Like real, like
yeah.
the writing is just so real.
Yes, and it's in Oceanside, literally our hometown of Oceanside. And yeah, so a blackety black play in our town, which doesn't always get featured for those kind of art experiences and stories. So that was really special to experience that. So definitely check it out. So for me this week, I did my artist day at the beach, because once every time I touch down in California, I'm like, I need to go to the beach. Like, so the sooner I
Mhm.
can go, the more grounded I feel. So yesterday, after I finished all my work, after I finished Soultry stuff, I was like, "Okay, Tony, you're gonna go to the beach," and I wasn't as early in the day as I wanted because I had to do other things, but I
Mhm.
went before the sunset and I walked along the beach a little bit, dipped my toes in the ocean because it was sunny yesterday too, so it wasn't too cold. And then I did my Earthcraft Oracle deck reading and I did some wishes for the spring equinox, so a new ritual of sorts, and journaled a bit, and then collected some seashells. So it was really lovely to just connect with Earth Mama, Ocean Mama, and it just felt really, really nice. Like it was just beautiful. So that helped me feel grounded. And then it was Taco Tuesday. So then I went over to Primo's Tacos. If you know, you know, the one in Oceanside, and then I got some really, really yummy tacos and brought some back for the family. But yes, it was a perfect solo date for me. Beach time, Earthcraft deck, the ocean, and tacos.
Yeah, that sounds like my kinda day, and she asked me on her way to the taco shop, did I want any, and she brought me back some, so thank you, sis. I really appreciate that. It was
Yeah,
delicious. So I
me
got part of
too.
your artist date
Yes.
through food.
Geneva shares, I went for a walk to take pictures of flowers and nature to celebrate spring beginning. Yes, love that. Yeah, since it was the spring equinox, I really wanted to just spend time in that energy of just being with Earth Mama on the spring equinox. Because, yeah, it's just a lot of like manifesting energy, new energy, letting
Mhm.
go, shifts, planting seeds. That's kind of the energy of this season.
Definitely. Kyle shares, for my artist day, I went to a tea shop, tried and bought some nice
Hmm.
loose leaf teas, and finally started to read a novel I'd been putting off. I love
Oh,
that.
nice.
Yes. Did you get different loose leaf teas so you can create your own blend? Let us know.
Yeah, if you can't tell, we love tea.
We definitely do. And speaking of something that rhymes with tea, did y'all experience any synchronicity this week? If so, what was it?
And so, yeah, I feel like, again, I see my angel numbers and stuff, but the other day, I think it was like 2 days ago, I was on a work meeting on Zoom, and it's more so deja vu, I guess, but I feel like those are like synchronicity too because you don't plan out deja vu. But it literally was on a Zoom and it was very like specific. Like the person had a virtual background that was talking about a conference that literally just happened. So like that couldn't have happened any other time. So it
Mhm.
was just the way the deja vu happened. I was like, that's interesting because I'm like, I don't read up about deja vu as much as I should because I experienced it a bit, but every time it happens, I'm always like, this is interesting. Especially when it happens in a thing that's so like, it reminds me like this is deja vu, Tony, because this literally couldn't have happened any other way. um, so that was interesting. And so I almost forgot about it till now talking about synchronicity. I think I wrote it in my journal though, but yeah, so that was something I'm counting as synchronicity.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, synchronicity, seeing things that you've seen before. For me,
Mhm,
I experience angel numbers, and normally I'll see numbers, but I don't always look them up, and I'll just know they're there, and I'll see them, and I'll just like have a moment and kind of like look around and take in that moment.
mhm,
Versus like, what does it mean? More like, okay, there's a sign for me to like pause and look around or experience something more deeper.
mhm.
um, but today on my birthday, our friend Janelle sent me a birthday well wishes at 3:33 in the morning.
Oh,
And I was
sweet.
like, and she's very much into that stuff too, like numerology and angel numbers. So I was like, did you realize you sent me a birthday text at 3:33? She was like, yes, because I want to send you that good energy. And so I looked it up and it's they say that this encourage you to set plans into action, let your personal strength be the
Mm,
guide, to trust yourself and to put thought into your choices. And I'm like, oh, that's like
mm,
so relevant to right now. And I don't think she knew that I had applied for grad school and got in.
Mm.
So like it was just very aligned. And then it's also about divine presence, protection, and love. So I appreciated that because I was able to really receive her message and really just receive like all the blessings and warm wishes that everyone's giving me today. And at the same time, like putting forth like the energy I'd like to have on this next chapter of my
Mhm.
life. So I'm feeling very empowered. And that number is like, yeah, go get it, girl. You got this. Trust yourself. It's very like, I feel like I'm in a season of like content and trust.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Oh, I love that. And threes are also like a special spiritual number too, because when you think of like the Holy Trinity or things like that,
Mm.
um, yeah, so threes are always well, all numbers have a different significance, but threes are also
Oh,
special in that
unity
way.
represents unity.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. I do feel one. It's so funny because all the things that's happening right now, I was telling someone because my birthday's today. So everyone's like, how old are you or how are you feeling? And I'm like, what's interesting is like how I feel at 35 is how I felt that I was supposed to feel at 25. Like when I turned
Mm,
25, I thought, I'm going to know this. I'm going to be doing
mm.
this. I'm going to be doing what I love. Cause like post grad, I was like 22. So in 3 years, I'm going to be in my career, like everything. I'm going to be making all the money I can make. I'm just gonna be so secure. I'm gonna have like a life partner already. Like I'm just a house. I don't know. I just thought.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
how it is in life. We just always what do they say? We overestimate how much we can do in, like, a small time, and we underestimate how much we can do in, like, a
yeah,
larger time. So,
yeah.
yeah, it's
So
always
like
like, "Next year, I'm gonna have all this stuff."
yeah. So how I thought I was supposed to feel at 25, y'all. I feel now at 35. So it's giving me like a realistic like. So okay, for the rest of my life, just double everything. And then I
Mhm.
also feel like just for the rest of my life, just not even have those stringent expectations,
Yeah.
just be really open. And yeah, so I was kind of laughing today. I was like, and someone was like, you look 35. Sorry, you look 25. No, sorry. So someone was like, you look 25, you're 35. And I'm like, yeah. And like, I don't know. So it was just funny to even just remember how I felt 10 years ago and be like, oh, wow, it's interesting that I kind of feel that that energy of contentment and security and confidence that I've been wanting to feel for like the past 10 years. Like I feel that on my birthday.
Love that. Yeah, I feel like that's what I was sharing with people more recently is, like, now that I'm 30, I've realized, like, in the grand scheme of life, if we live closer to 90, we're just in our first 30%, 33% of our life. So imagine we still have so much more life to live if we're still only the first third. So it's like that also puts into perspective, like when you think of, how the average life expectancy, right, is more so like 80 something. So like we still have a lot of years. Like we can do all types of other things in our
Hmm.
lives. But yeah, I think society makes us think, especially social media, because it's, you see a lot of the like finished product of people's lives, right? And so you're like, oh, this person has this thing, which we're going to talk about in this week's chapter. But you see, oh, this person has this thing. So, like, oh, I'm supposed to have this thing, right? Like, we're the same age or we have the same level of experience. So, we're in the same cohort, whatever it is. There's so much of life that there's pressure. And then again, with society, especially in the US with birthdays, there's always like okay, the next year you're going to do bigger and better. But it's like, especially with the NAP ministry and rest is resistance, like we could just be. You don't got to be better. You don't got to strive. She was talking about how, like, why are we striving for Black excellence? She's like, why can't we just be Black okayness? Like, we
Yeah.
just exist, right? Like, and so I think that is kind of the energy of like birthdays too. Like sometimes people are always like, "Oh, so what's next?" And it's just like you just want to enjoy the now. Like just happy that you woke up for another day, a joyful day, and just go from there.
Hmm. Let's check in the chat what some folks have shared our synchronous moments. Geneva shares, I was walking, listening to music, and told myself to slow down and enjoy the walk. And right after it said it in the next song that played.
Aw.
The first thing it said was, slow down. I don't know if that's a song, but when I just want to get to know you, the flower was like, come on, smell me, girl. Smell me. I don't know if that's a song, but when I hear the word slow down, that would be a fun game. Like song title, and then how does it sound when you
Right, and
sing
then,
it?
like, us, the Soultry sisters, have to guess how the song goes. That would be a fun game.
And additionally, Geneva Shares also had been thinking about and wanting one of my favorite artists on one of my favorite podcasts all week, and then that Friday they were on it.
Mm,
Mm.
okay. I
Love that.
love that. Both of us. And then the last check-in question, of course, are were there any other issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery? Again, we're in week 10, so there's a lot that we're learning, there's a lot that we're unlearning, there's a lot that we've checked in about so far. But if there's anything else that came up, or there's anything that rereading your morning pages, are you realizing have been issues that you haven't addressed, or are there things in your pages that you're like, oh, that used to be an issue, and now, I've worked through that.
This morning I discovered, and what's important for my recovery is to, be aware of the environment I need to write with ease. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I didn't think that I needed a table. I thought I was fine laying down like this. But yeah, so that's my discovery.
Nice. Yeah, for me, I do feel like I'm better about my sleep routine and my sleep hygiene. Um, it's always can have improvement, but I do realize, again, going from coast to coast, it's always like a bit wonky to get readjusted. And so that's what I'm just being aware of this week of like trying to create a schedule here on the West Coast that still allows me to show up for my commitments on the East Coast, but also do the things that I need to and want to do here. So again, it's kind of similar to other weeks, but just like creating a routine that, yeah, feels good, that doesn't feel like strict or rigid, but also allows me the space and the time to do the things that I do want to do.
Yeah, definitely. The time change is a true test.
Hmm. And this week, specifically with work, I just have had a lot of morning meetings, East Coast time, which means like crack of dawn,
Yes,
West Coast time.
7:45.
Yeah, so it's not always my schedule is like that, but yeah, this week has been more so.
Shall we move on to the tasks? All right, now it's that time of the discussion to talk about our week 10 task reflection. So, we're going to share some of the tasks that we were able to do ourselves. Let us know. I think this week we had one, two, three, four,
4,
five.
5, yeah.
Yeah, we had 5 tasks, which seems to be the average, but for the most part, I think they were doable. It's only number one, which was about taking a piece of paper, cutting it into 7 strips, and writing down these different creative blocks, and then writing down like how we're resistant to making those changes. That was the one that was like, that's taking a lot of time. And I would like to do it later on because she was saying how it's going to uncover like where we're in the most denial, and really make us create more clarity around what is our true blocks. Because from top of the mind, we might think, oh, this really blocks me. But when you have to write about it more than once, then you really get to the bottom of like what really blocks you from being able to fully actualize your creative endeavors.
Yeah. So number one, I didn't do the full task because I was actually doing my task on my plane ride here. So I didn't have, yeah, paper to like rip up and do that part of the exercise. But yeah, talking about like, oh, we might think one thing is a block and not, it just reminded me of the social media or the media deprivation week. And for years now, I've always been like, oh, I should probably take a social media break, but like, oh, I don't really need one. It's not really a block. Like, I don't think it affects my life. Like, I'm fine. Or I use it for business. Like, I can't take a break from it. So I'm fine. So that media deprivation week, I realized like, no, actually, you do have a crutch with social media specifically. Um, and so having that awareness through the deprivation week was helpful. So I do think the number one task will be helpful to go through. But yeah, I just didn't have the access to paper when I was doing my task, and then after that, I kind of forgot because then I finished all my
Yeah.
other tasks.
And then let us know if you did task number 2, which is called touchstones. And it says, make a quick list of things you love, happiness touchstones for you. For example, river rocks, worn smooth, willow trees, um, real Italian bread. That's a shade. Homemade vegetable soup, black beans and rice, the smell of newly lawn mowed grass, blue velvet, the cloth and the song, and Aunt Minnie's crumb pie. So I was like, okay, there's another list. We always get the list in each chapter.
Yeah, I did this one and I really liked it. And I feel like it's a different iteration of her other list that we do because I think in different weeks she talks about like list of things you enjoy or list of things you love doing before and you don't do anymore. So yeah, now she reworded it as just things you love regardless. So yeah, some of the things I wrote was sunsets, the ocean, walks in nature, smelling flowers, butterflies, the sound of ocean waves, gummy candy, ice cream, warm sunshine on my skin, hibiscus, boba, nail art, French fries, my neo soul and R&B playlist,
Mm-hmm.
the swings at the park, hot tea, reading outside, picnics, um, dancing, fresh flowers, swimming in the ocean. I don't really like swimming in the waves. I like swimming like in the ocean, like either when I was snorkeling, scuba diving, stuff like that. Like I like to just be where it's like more peaceful in the water for
That
me.
currents.
Yeah. I put ceramics, puzzles. I really like puzzles and I don't do them as often as I want. Incense, candles, and then I put short poems to Mama Earth. So it was sweet. And then with my artist date, I got to enjoy many of the things that I love. So it was sweet to do that. Like I was doing those tasks on the plane, and then to come here and be able to do a lot of those things was really nice.
Yeah, the touchstone task makes me think of like all the things that unlock our senses.
Hmm.
Like all the things you listed have to do with like touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing, like even the music.
Hmm.
So I think also this list, like you said, is a great list to source for ideas for an artist date. And they can be just those things.
Hmm.
And what about number 3, the awful truth? Answer the following questions. I like this one. She goes, tell the truth. What habit do you have that gets in the way of your creativity? Tell the truth. What do you think might be a problem? It is. Um, tell the truth. What do you plan to do about the habit or problem? What is your payoff in holding
Hmm.
on to this block? If you can't figure out your payoff, ask a trusted friend. I was like, I had to ask my sister. Um, tell the truth. Which friends make you doubt yourself? I was like, ooh. The self-doubt is yours already, but they trigger it. So that was helpful because I'm like, I don't have
Mm,
friends that have self-doubt, but when they say no, it's like people who trigger your self-doubt. I was like, oh, then I
yeah.
was able to answer it. And then tell the truth. Which friends believe in you and your talent? The
Mhm.
talent is yours, but they make you feel it. I was like, yes. I was like, I
Mhm.
like these. And then what is the payoff in keeping your destructive friends? If the answer
Mhm.
is I like them, the next question is why? Um, which destructive habits do your destructive friends share with your destructive self? I was like, mm. And then which constructive habits do your constructive friends share with your constructive self? So this is like a great exercise, y'all, if you are just trying to get out of these creative U-turns. Because in this chapter, they talk about these blocks that we have that can be like workaholism, food, what is it called? What else? Busyness, all these other things, and that it's our choosing. But to even now relate it to like the people that surround us, I was like, that is a thing. Because you can say like we can say that we're going to stop doing certain things, but it's the environment and the people that are around us that are going to help us to truly recover. So I appreciated this one.
Yeah,
And
I think it's also like on previous weeks we talk about crazy makers and right, like if maybe some of those destructive friends are crazy makers, it's like, okay, but what's still attracting you to be around them? So I think that's like a helpful exercise too, especially if you're someone who, like a couple months ago, we read the book Platonic, which is like about making and sustaining friendships in adulthood. And it's a really helpful book. So go to our book club playlist and you can watch it there. But I think for a lot of people in our community, we talk about, even me specifically, talk about creating friends as an adult. And like, sometimes it takes time to figure out like who's my person, who feels good, who shares same values, who shows up for me in the way that feels good. So I feel like this exercise also helps with that process if you are in a season of wanting to cultivate newer relationships in your adulthood of like, these are good questions, right? Like what, who believes in you and your talents, what habits do they have in common with you, and like how do they bring that out. And I appreciated that because sometimes you do want friends that have similar interests of you sometimes or on a similar path, but also when you think of like what things do they do that I do that we share in common, I think that goes a little bit deeper than the surface.
Definitely. I felt that when I had to think about my constructive friends and also the friends who believe in me and my talent, and I'm realizing like those
Mhm.
are the friends that I've kept, and the destructive
Mhm.
friends are the people that I have not kept
Mhm.
like over the years, and also not even just destructive friends, like people, acquaintances that I avoid. And I'm like, because I'm a person like a recovering people pleaser. I'm like, why do I not like this person? And I like to think that I'm like, oh, I don't want to be like, I'm like, I don't know why I don't like this person. But now that I read this, I'm like, oh, because they trigger sometimes self-doubt. They might not
Yeah.
even be doing anything to me, but because I have that doubt already, there's something that's
Mhm.
happening that's making me doubt myself. And so I start to avoid that person, even though they haven't done anything to me.
Mhm.
And then in the past, I used to like still be around people like that. And that caused and then that's why I wasn't able to really reach a certain point, like in my
Mhm.
creative endeavors, because I was surrounded by people that made me doubt myself. But it
Mhm.
wasn't even that they were doubting me. Sometimes them openly doubting themselves made me doubt myself.
Mhm.
People were like, kind of Debbie Downers or like,
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, wow." I'm like, "That's probably why." But it's more than that. It's like this made me uncover like the root of it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what I felt doing that part of the exercise too. Because at first, yeah, I was like, "Oh, this is hard, like, who does that?" But yeah, go like, talking about it more or reflecting more through the practice, I was like, "Oh, okay." So got a little bit more to the root, and I appreciated, like, writing about what habits my constructive friends have that share with me. Because then that also felt like it was a boost, because I think last week with the compassion. And then this week with the self protection, it was a nice reminder of like, oh, like I have great things that I do too, that like I attract, people who also have these habits. And so some of the habits I wrote that my constructive friends and I share are like self starters, change makers, they motivate me. Prioritizing wellness, reading often, open minded, well rounded, likes to travel and experience new things and cultures, like to express themselves. So that to me means like dance, writing, going places, ambitious and determined with their goals. So, and the people who I listed, I was like, oh yeah, we all do that in our own way, whether that's friends I've had for a long time, or my sister, or like newer people who've come into my life. So it's also always sweet to me when I reflect on like friendships, especially, and when I think of newer people in my life, because I'm just like, oh yeah, like even in a short time, they've been able to have like an impact on my life.
Yes, when I was thinking about my the some of my the constructive friends, um I started to reflect on like the people who like helped me pursue this next chapter, which was grad school. And like
Mm,
all my constructive friends were the ones when I shared it, like they were like, it's gonna be hard, but I'm like, well, not it's gonna be hard. They were happy for me. And like
mhm,
they instead of like projecting any of their certain emotions about grad school, they were mostly like cheering me on and happy. And like
mhm,
also they were saying, thank you so much for sharing that with me. Cause it's not
mm,
like people don't always go around sharing all their goals, and I was like very selective of who I was telling because I just had certain feelings. And then certain destructive friends I remember also sharing with certain people, and I remember like being questioned about like why am I doing this, and
mhm,
like I might not need to, like, just things I'm like, oh, how did I share? Like I would, and I found myself like in the beginning of me pursuing grad school, like this is why I don't share with everybody, because certain people
Mhm.
will say things, and that's why I went into like full hermit, and I just stopped sharing because there was one person who was like, you don't really like, I don't think you really need that, you're already doing whatever, whatever. And I was just kind of like, huh. And it made me doubt. So
Mhm.
it made me like kind of reflect on a specific experience, like because
Mhm.
it's on top of mind. I was like, oh, that's very, very interesting. But I would have
Mhm.
never considered that person a destructive friend until, or destructive friends with a destructive habit. But I think
Habits,
it's,
yeah.
but I now know it's like, some people just have that habit of like questioning things. And like I realized like, oh, it wasn't personal. It was just like them.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just them projecting or that's where they're at in their journey. And so, yeah, it's like, with the 4 agreements, like, also don't always take things personally, right? Like, okay, knowing being self-aware to be like, that's you are that's your baggage or that's your priority or whatever. And that's some when thinking about the destructive friends too, I was like, for me, it was hard to think of like a whole person that's like very destructive who I consider a friend, right? Because if people are destructive, I don't consider them friends. But I was thinking also of like different qualities of people that I'm close to that are destructive. So there's some things that some people I know and I'm close to do that I don't always resonate with and doesn't feel good for me. But I have, given them leeway, or sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm just not going to spend time with them in that way, or I'm not going to do this thing with them. But it is still a destructive habit that they have, right? Certain things that doesn't align with me, or sometimes it felt like, okay, am I supposed to tell this person like this is destructive? Because again, we're all on our own journeys. So sometimes I'm like, is this something I should share? So that's
Mhm.
what it made me think about too. Of like sometimes it's not the whole person, but like these things that people do.
Yes, and I like how Geneva succinctly put it. Sometimes
Hmm.
people aren't bad people. They're just bad people for you. Mhm.
And it depends on where you're at in your journey, right? Like, let's say, you are plant-based vegan or something, and someone's just like always want to tear down some spare ribs. You're just like, and maybe that's triggering because you are someone who, if it's there on the table, you want to eat it. So like that could be a destructive habit too, right? Of like someone not wanting to maybe meet you halfway with your dietary needs, right? So that's just like a small example, but that could be something that weighs on someone. Or it could be like you don't want to spend certain kind of money doing a certain kind of activity, but maybe your friends always invite you to this all you can eat brunch that is all
Mhm.
paid price, and you're like, I don't want to do this every weekend, right? So it's like there's different things that can be. It doesn't have to be like they're just a terrible person through and through.
Exactly. And then task 4, setting a bottom line. I really like this one.
Yeah, I
Setting
appreciated this one.
setting a bottom line is working with your answers from the above question. Setting a bottom line for yourself. Try setting a bottom line for yourself. Begin with 5 of your most painful behaviors.
Hmm.
You can always add more. So here's some
Hmm.
bottom line. So she's saying, like, if you notice that your evenings are typically like doing extra work, then make a rule that you must like not work after 6. That's a bottom line.
Hmm.
So that's an example of a bottom line,
Hmm.
like trying to help to change a behavior. And as a
Hmm.
person who is a recovering workaholic, this was great.
Hmm. Yeah, I really like this exercise because it really helped me, especially when she's like, start with 5. Because at first I was like, okay, how am I gonna write these things down? But she does have examples in the book. But I really appreciate it. I took a picture of it because I was like, I want to remind myself.
Mhm.
Um, and so one of the things, which is what she kind of had in as example, but I really want to prioritize it in my life, is I will not prioritize work over my creative commitments. So for me, that's like my pole, pottery, craft nights, or my solo dates. And so recently, like when I schedule my solo dates or like have a mental plan of what I'm going to do, then I make sure that I get things done before that, or know that, okay, I'm going to get back to that after I do my date, or especially when I schedule my pole classes, then that helps. So that was a nice reminder of like, oh, yeah, this could be a boundary for myself. It doesn't have to be a nice to have, right? These bottom lines are like, no, this is my boundary. And so I appreciate that. And something I've been doing more recently is I will not use social media before. the mornings. I put 10 a.m. because that's usually when I start work. And so I usually wake up, do my morning pages, and even if I finish my morning page, then I'll just do other stuff besides going and scrolling. And so that has been helpful for me to just feel better, honestly. Like I just
Yeah,
feel more just lighter because, social media just has a lot of different things that can trigger different
energy.
things, or you can just soak in a bunch of stuff, even unconsciously. And so that's been something that I've been doing more recently, and it's helped me have more time for my soul care, right? So maybe I'll make tea, or creative care. So one of the days after I finished writing my morning page, I still was feeling like writing. So then I just let myself write more. And so I also feel like these bottom lines are, yes, boundaries. And some people can feel like boundaries are kind of restricting, but I feel like they're kind of like the lanes on the road, right? Like you can kind of veer out of them, but they kind of help guide you to stay like on the path.
Yeah. One of my bottom lines, which I was like, I can't believe I'm writing this, is I will have a dedicated day off.
Nice. That's a big one, y'all, for her. Nice.
And dedicated means like thinking about it before the week, because usually my day off, like whenever I don't have anything scheduled, I guess that's my day off. That's different energy than no, when I look at my month, because I'm a freelance artist, I need to look at my months and just be like, oh no, something can't go here, because I know I can't always have the same day off a week, but I need to have a
Mhm.
dedicated day off. So that was I think that I put that as number 4 out of the 5. So it took me a couple other ones that were dancing around it. Like one of mine is like, I will not bring work with me in bed.
Mm.
So it's like, because sometimes I'm like, I'm tired. So let
Does
me
that
bring the
include the phone?
yes.
I'm just clarifying for you.
Yes. Okay, yeah, thank you.
You don't have a loophole.
Because I feel like sometimes I'm like, I'm tired, like, I'm gonna work on my phone in bed. That's why Tony said that, because specifically, I will do work from my phone, and not and I it's not work because it's not my laptop. So she's adding me, but yeah, I don't wanna bring work with me in bed. So if I'm gonna work, I need to get out of bed, and then no, I'm working, because that pseudo resting working is not. No, that's the bottom line. So those are the 2 that are the biggest. Yeah, and, like, everything else has to do with those ones. Like, they're all iterations, because I was like, I think it was hard
Mhm.
for me to, like, say it.
Yeah. No, that's good. And like, I mean, I sometimes allow myself, but for the most part, for a while now, I think in the last year, I've been better about not working with my laptop in my bed, especially when I'm in my home. Here, it's a little wonky because I don't have my full setup, but um, when I'm in my Pisces dream space, I have been really good about not working from my bed. So my bed is more so my dedicated rest space, which I think
Mhm.
has improved my sleep when I'm home. But yeah, so different things like that, can help. Um, and yeah, I'm curious what all of y'all's bottom lines are, if you want to share, or at least a topic of what it was. I just love hearing everyone's insights and their reflections because it always inspires me.
It seems like Kyle agrees with you, Tony. I felt the same way about artist dates. When they're intentionally planned, they're more
Mhm.
impactful. Definitely. They are.
Mhm.
Some of the weeks when there were more afterthoughts, like, "Okay, I guess I'll count this as a, artist date," I feel like I cheated myself.
Mhm. 'Cause it's like I've been thinking about it recently of like, just like if I go hang out with a friend or go on a date or something, like I intentionally take that time and reserve it for that person. I don't then overbook myself and cancel versus like for myself, right? You might overbook yourself like, oh, I guess I can't do my artist date. So I intentionally like with the plan, it helps set that time aside. And then sometimes depending on what my date is, then I'll even get ready and get cute. And that makes me feel good. And then also just I have it to look forward to, especially if I plan it a couple of days ahead. I'm like, "Ooh, I'm gonna do this thing." So it just gives me that same excitement as, like,
Yeah.
when I hang out with other people, and I'm like, "Yeah, like, I want that same feeling for myself." So that has been really special about the artist dates as well. It's just, like, romancing your own self.
Mhm. Romance. speaking of romance, number 5 is cherishing. And there was
Mhm.
like 5 different things, list 5 small victories, list 3 nurturing actions you took for your artist, list 3 actions you could take to comfort your artist, which I was like, oh, these are 2 different things.
Mhm.
And make 3 nice promises to yourself, keep them. And then 5, do
Mhm.
one lovely thing for yourself each day this week. Now that was hard for me because I didn't do these tasks till later in the week. But I
Yeah.
just yeah, so did y'all do task number 5, cherishing? If so, like, if let us know if you want to share any of these things. I like the make 3 nice promises to yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, I did this practice and I really enjoyed them. Um, let me see. Yeah, one of the nurturing actions I took for my artist this past week was I had gone to 2 pole classes when I was still in DC, so that was awesome, and I feel like I'm getting stronger, so I felt like, yeah, I just got to be in my creative flow, and I get so inspired, and I just feel so, like, embodied, like, in my body when I do pole, which has been a really,
Mhm.
lovely experience and healing part of my journey. Um, so I appreciate that I've been really intentional about cultivating that space for me to do that. Um, and then things I wanted to do to comfort my artist was go to the beach. So I got to do that yesterday. Um, and let's see here. Yeah. So a
For
lot of
my
it kinda also has to do with nature for me, which I'm noticing,
mhm.
like, a theme when I'm reading them. I'm like, "Oh,
Mm.
for me, a lot of the nurturing practices for me that I journal about is connecting with nature." And I think for
Mm.
me, that's kinda how I connect with creator, is through nature, through, like, Mama Earth, ocean mama, whatever it is that's around me. I think that's what helps ground me and feel connected to creator. And then I get inspired to write or want to, do these different creative practices. And so that's what I'm noticing even through like now being in week 10 is that like for me, that's kind of, I guess, a bottom line is like I need time with nature and to just make space for
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, like it's nice to see like the different uh trends. For me, like mine was very I put laughing as one of the things that I need.
Oh,
And I was like, yeah, like and that's something I don't think like I like laughing, but I don't think I realize like no, I love to laugh and that's why I
mhm.
gravitate towards like watching certain like movies or shows during a certain time because like I just crave laughing. And me and Tony
Mhm.
last night we had a laugh down, okay? And I just felt so good like the laugh. Oh my gosh, I just
We
love
were like full body laughing. Like when you're like
yeah.
on the ground, like
Yeah, and I was like, "This is what I need." Like for my artist, I need to. It feels like a release. Like I feel like it's hard for me to cry, and I think that's why I'm so big on laughing because I don't know if scientifically they're the same, but like I laugh so hard I cry. Like I'm like ah, and I cry. I'm like, well, maybe that's my circle way of getting to actually crying is laughing so hard I cry. I don't know.
I mean,
So
they're related.
Tony still wants me to. She's like,
Well,
your
crying
kidneys want you
okay,
to cry.
yes, because right now, spring this season is related to the liver, especially if you study, like, traditional Chinese medicine, and crying is a liver cleanse. We can look up, so we'll get back to y'all next week or so about if laughing is a liver cleanse too. It
Yeah.
potentially could be. I think they're probably related.
I would love if it
Um,
was.
but
Liver.
well, it's like, fruits and vegetables. They're very similar and they give similar benefits for your body, but you still need both. The more the merrier. But it's definitely a release. So yes, the release feeling is really good. And I think also part of the creative journey, I think that's what she talks about the creative journey also being a spiritual recovery because these different things like crying, laughing, just getting in touch with our senses and our emotions and our inner
Yeah.
worlds is how we heal and recover. And I
Mhm.
think in all of what we've shared over the last 10 weeks, especially you all sharing your insights with us, has been all of us just tapping
Mhm.
deeper into ourselves.
And speaking of spirituality, just dawned on me, like, a lot of my, ways to comfort my artist was, like, movement based. And
Mhm,
so whether it was walking or dancing,
mhm,
or laughing,
mhm.
um someone once told me, actually Sierra, who's DJing this Friday, was like, dancing and singing are signs of a free spirit.
Oh, that makes sense.
Dancing
That
and singing
makes
are
sense
signs of a free spirit. Like,
because I like hum and like make sounds a lot. Like I just make random sounds and hum and sing non-songs, like things I just make up, the sounds that come together. And I tell people all the time that like if your Tony doesn't make these sounds, I have been replaced by a robot. Because like, yeah, if you just know me, then like there's times I'm just like do or just do little sounds and gestures and mannerisms that I think go into what you're sharing of like, yeah, that's when my spirit just feels free, is when I
mhm.
can have those little quirky sounds and songs that I be singing.
Yeah. So we are going to be free spirits, y'all, on Friday. Bow, 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 bow.
Yes.
We're gonna be free spirits on Sunday, so definitely join us. I had to plug it in, but Geneva shares, I digress. I did 3 ways I nurture my artist. 1, saying kind words to myself about my artistic
Mhm.
growth. 2, being patient with my progress and enjoying where I'm at. And
Mm.
3, believing my talent is already enough. Yes, I love
Mm.
that.
I
Mhm.
love that. And then she shares, the more you're in touch with your truest self, the easier it is to express it. Ooh, I love that so much. And I do feel that. I feel like what you were sharing earlier, Alyssa, about like 35 being like feeling like your more authentic self, your true self. That's how I feel like each year getting closer to my 30s is like just each year I grow. I just feel like, yeah, I'm closer and closer to my authentic self. And I think that's what this journey, a lot of healing journeys are about, is excavating, right? To get closer to the root. It's not
Mhm.
that we're now trying to be a different person. It's not that we're creating this new character for ourselves. It's, no,
Yeah.
we're actually like letting go, shedding, releasing the stuff that we put on. Some as armor, some as like we just thought that's what we had to do, and actually taking those things off to get down to the root. So I really, really resonate with that, Geneva.
Yes, so thank you all for sharing all your task reflection answers. Shall we get into the reading?
Yes. So week 10 is about recovering a sense of self protection.
Yes, I'll read the intro. So, recovering a sense of self protection. This week, we explore the perils that can ambush us on our creative path. Because creativity is a spiritual issue, many of the perils are spiritual perils. In these essays, tasks, and exercises this week, we'll search out the toxic patterns we cling to that block our creative flow. So,
Mm,
this chapter is separated by these sections: dangers of the trail, workaholism, drought, fame, and competition. So, we're going to be sharing some quotes from each section to really dive deeper into what it means to recover a sense of self protection.
hmm So the first section is dangers of the trail. And so it starts off with this quote that I wanted to share just to ground us. And so creativity is God energy or creator energy flowing through us, shaped by us like light flowing through a crystal prism. When we are clear about who we are and what we are doing, the energy flows freely. I was like, yes, thank you for this reminder on week 10 that, again, just like by us connecting with ourselves, that we're connecting with creator, and that's when all this creativity will flow, which again, that's why we do the artist dates, that's why we do our morning pages. And so reading that this week, I was like, yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like for me, it's giving me the image that we are a vessel,
Hmm.
a vessel. I like how you grounded us with that. Um, and so to support that, this next quote we wanted to share is like, knowing yourself as an artist means acknowledging which of these you abuse when you want to block yourself. So we're talking about like, okay, so
Hmm.
that's what it feels like for energy to flow. These are the things that block that energy, that
Hmm.
ability to have that God energy flowing through us, which is food, alcohol, sex, and work. And so
Mhm.
I really appreciated that she wanted us to like identify, like, in order for us to know ourselves, we need to know our vices. I guess people, instead of calling it creative
Mhm,
blocks, I think people might call these vices. And she
mhm,
wanted to point out these things aren't bad, but it's bad when we abuse them and
mhm.
they prevent us from being our truest self or also being our creative selves.
And for me, just reading through this book again, like now reading this in 2024, like she probably didn't have this language, but in my head, I was also thinking about social media. It's from having that media deprivation week. For me,
Mhm.
social media was the hardest one to not give into. So I feel like that is a vice that I'm working through. Because some of the other ones I do also struggle with, but I feel like for me, it's at this time in my journey, it's really social media.
Well, that kind of brings me to the quote that you want to share next is we all reach for blocks to slow our growth. Like we reach for
Reach
our
for the
blocks. It's
phone.
literally a block, y'all.
Yes, exactly. So that's what I was thinking of with this section. I was like, for me, everyone else it could be different, but for me, social media, I think, is a block that I reach for many reasons, and a lot of it is to like block whatever I'm feeling. Right? It's like a numbing type of
Mhm.
feeling. That's kind of what I get from social media a lot of times. So
Mhm.
I appreciate that, especially when she says to slow our growth, right? So it's like sometimes even like some of these things we're like, oh, you do this thing and maybe you're having a good day, but then you're like, oh, I want to reward myself, right? So sometimes it's not even like, oh, I'm feeling down, I want to do this. Sometimes you're feeling good. You're like, oh, I want to reward myself. And you either want to eat something, drink something, do something, or someone.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
forgot, right? So
Well,
it's
I think
like
it was
that's
also
like
interesting.
also it's a little different.
Yeah, adding to social media, and I think it would be consumerism.
Yes, retail therapy is
Retail
like
therapy, like
retail
that is a
block.
block, y'all. Like,
I feel
especially people like
seen.
especially because like, okay, not to be shade, but like content creators versus being an artist. Like, I'm not saying content creators can't be artists, but there is a difference, y'all. There's a different like now there's instead of saying artist, like I'm a creative, and like, oh, what's your practice? Like, I'm a content creator. I'm like, and like I said, no shade, but there's these layers, y'all. And I would love to have another chat about this because I think this maybe there's another book that really focuses on that. But I think that can be a block. Thinking that to be an artist, you have to be sharing it on social media. Like to think like to be a
Mhm,
valid artist, you need to have content that showcases your process. So I'm not trying to shade content creators, but I'm just trying to say like that can be a block for artists to actually proclaim being an artist because they don't show up in the world in that social media
mhm.
framework.
Yeah, or some I feel like there's some content creators that I hear are or were artists or have artistic practices, but because of the industry now and people need to pay bills and stuff that they then create content because it's related to certain income that they want to make or they get deals to do versus art for art's sake, which especially artist way is about is like you don't even have to create a product, like just go for a walk.
Well,
Which is different than
that
how the media kind of portrays creation
yeah.
at this point.
Well, that's also like when people talk about like, oh, you have to niche down. So like do like when you first start out, do many things and see what gets you the most like likes, views, whatever. And that's where like Soultry, like we've been told like niche down, like y'all be doing a lot. And like that's because we're creative artists. Like we want to express ourselves differently and we don't really want to have like the consistency is that we show up, but not consistency is like we don't just do one thing, we do many things. And to me, they all relate, but I remember early on being like taught the structure of like showing up on media and niching down. And we have resisted that and we have flourished. So, but yeah, so well, the next quote goes, as we become aware of our blocking devices, we can feel our U-turns as we make them. And I definitely can agree.
Hmm.
And throughout this book, I like when I was preparing for my audition for the master's program, one of my blocks was workaholism. Like I was like,
Hmm.
I don't have time to prep these two songs, learning two whole songs, and I found myself feeling irritable that I had to do this task. But because of the artist way, I was like, hold up, this is feeling like a block, because we've been talking about block this whole time.
Mhm.
We're just contextualizing it more throughout the book, and I was able to provide myself a space to work on it by working with a vocal coach. It's like, I know myself, if I pay for
Mhm.
lessons, I'm going to feel more obliged to give myself that time. Like, it's sad that I wouldn't practice
Mhm.
on my own, but I knew myself enough to know that I needed support, because I
Mhm.
would get in my own way by saying, just talking myself down and all those doubts. So
Mhm.
that's why I wanted to share this quote.
Definitely. I do feel like, again, now week 10 of this journey, I do feel like the self-awareness is definitely heightened. Like, I definitely feel more aware of these U-turns, right? Sometimes we'll still make them, or sometimes you're like, "Okay, I
Because
know
sometimes the
what I'm
car's on
doing,"
auto.
but yeah, but I do feel I'm definitely more aware, and that has helped me just be even aware of, like, "Why am I picking up my phone?" Or, "Why do I feel so resistant to do this thing that I say I wanted to do?" And so, yeah, it definitely has helped.
Let's see what folks have said in the chat. We have Kyle sharing, yeah, I think this section would be very different if we're written post smartphone.
Mhm.
Definitely. There'll be probably a chapter recovering a sense of self after social media, uh, recovering a sense of selfie. And then Kyle shares, along similar lines of making important distinctions, being a recovering workaholic makes it tough to distinguish between reaching for a block and allowing yourself to have a break or indulgence. There's a thin
Mm.
line.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And then Geneva shares, I didn't resonate with the creative box she shared. But for me, my self doubt used to be my creative block. I feel that.
Hmm.
I doubted if I was worthy of being created, creative or seen, so then I wouldn't create. Then blocking future streams of creative consciousness. Yes.
Hmm.
And I feel that too. I feel like, again, like with the book, there's some things that do work of like for us these days in 2024, and there's some stuff that, there's other language we have now, and also from our own backgrounds and our own experiences, there's things that we're bringing forward for this journey. So yeah, because I feel like with the block she shared, I was like, I can see how these are blocks, but yeah, for me, I didn't always personally resonate with them either, so that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And then another quote we wanted to share is, blocking is essentially an issue of faith. Rather than trust our intuition, our talent, our skill, our desire, we fear we are um where our creator is taking us with this creativity. I was like, ain't that
Hmm.
the truth? Yeah, that faith is a block.
Hmm.
No, well, not having faith is a block.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes, by not having faith, then we give in to the block, and then at times, and we use the block as an excuse, like, "Oh, if I just had more time to do XYZ thing, then I can work on my creativity or my art," and it's like, "Well, why don't you have time?" Maybe it's because these blocks that you're doing, right? So, I think this book really helps us just be real with ourselves, like,
Mhm.
is it really like these things? And even, yeah, right. Is it really a block, or is it maybe we need to just be more confident in ourselves? Or is it
Yeah.
really a block, or maybe we just need to take a break? Like, that's
Yeah,
fine
or
too.
when it comes to when we say block is essentially an issue of faith, um, sometimes block is also essentially an issue of time. Are we making time?
Hmm.
Are we giving ourselves the time to really develop? Are we giving ourselves time to actualize?
Hmm.
Like I said, it was 25, 35. That was 10 years, y'all. So essentially, faith is an issue of some. When I think about it, it's like time.
Hmm.
Having faith that in time, if we're consistent with not, productivity, but consistent with just our creative endeavors, s- things shall reveal itself.
Hmm. Which I think goes into the next section. We're just talking about workaholism. It's especially living within the US and living in a capitalist society. I resonated with this section a lot, and it's something that I have been unlearning for years now. I feel like I've been conditioned and programmed from family to society to school, right? Being in academia to now being in the workforce as an adult. It's just like work, work, work. You work hard, play hard, right? These words, like these
Mhm.
phrases that are normal in society, or, oh yeah, a 7 day, or not 7 crazy. 5-day work week, like, why is that okay? Like, things like that, that I feel like our society just perpetrates and makes normal, when this book
Mhm.
is reminding us that we can create our own normal. So the first quote we wanted to share is, in order to recover our creativity, we must learn to see workaholism as a block instead of a building block, right? Because in our society, it's like, oh, you're working all the time. Like she mentions this in the chapter of like, oh, it's so normal to say, like, oh, I can't, I have work, right? Like if someone has a birthday party, like, oh, I can't, I have work. Or someone has a spa day. Let's say you get gifted a free spa certificate. Like, oh, I can't, I'm just working so much. It's like, what? Like, why is it so normal for us to just be like, "Oh, I just have work. I gotta do work." And so, yeah, I feel like in our society, it has been glorified and romanticized to have this work thing, right? It's like boss babe, girl boss. Why? Why? I don't want to be a boss.
Or it's like
I want to be a
working
sloth.
for
Why can't I be sloth babe? Like
yeah.
restful babe.
Yeah, which goes to this next quote in creative recovery. It is easier to get people to do the extra work of the morning pages than it is to get them to do the assigned play of an artist date. Like I said, that real estate of time, y'all, that real estate of time. And also, the sensation of morning pages can feel more familiar because it feels like work to most. I know it did for me at the beginning, and then the artist date felt like a retreat, like a going off, like a something special. So I can understand why she made this distinction. But yeah, that's why people will identify more of working with the morning pages, because it's something that they realistically can do, and really you can realistically do both.
Yeah, and I think also because like with the pages, then you see like again, if people are about productivity, it's like, oh, I wrote these pages. I did 3 pages today, right? So it's like checking off the box of like I was
Mhm.
productive versus I went on a lovely restful walk and bask in the sun. They're like, how is that productive for me? So I think that's what also she's
It's
kind of getting at.
measurable, has metrics.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Exactly. And so she shares that essentially workaholism is a process addiction. So as addiction to a behavior rather than a substance, right? So you might not be addicted to sugar, to caffeine, right? These are also people's vices that she didn't list. Sugar, caffeine, sex, what else did she talk? Alcohol. Like even if those things aren't your vices, that doing this behavior is still an addiction, right?
Yes.
Just because society uplifts it and glorifies like working all the time, being a boss babe, that doesn't mean that you're not addicted to something and that you
Yeah.
don't need recovery. I think that's why she talks about addiction, because this book is about recovery, right? So like sometimes we only associate a recovering person with someone who has, used substances in a certain kind of way. But she's like, no, there's a lot of us who have used and abused things in our life, expansive definition of what that can be, and that we're recovering from.
Mhm. It's like also, social media is a process addiction.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it's so interwoven into our lives now.
And
Just being on
consumerism
the internet.
and
Yeah, just being on the
consumerism is a
internet.
process addiction. It's like, "Oh, let's go to the mall." Like, it's such embedded in our culture to be normal to just go shop when, you don't specifically need anything.
Yeah. And then we have some people in the chat commenting. So Geneva shares, especially in America, it's a badge of honor to be a workaholic when reality, work culture in America is modern day slavery. Exactly.
Mhm.
I've learned to consider my work to be enjoying and creating my life. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
I'm like, why do they just assume we just want to spend all this time working for usually these bigger organizations when those people aren't working as or not making themselves work as much as we have to. So we can go on a tangent with
Yes.
that. But yeah.
And then Kyle shares,
Yeah.
creatives can also trick themselves into overworking if their art is their work. Oh my gosh, can I get a yes?
Yes.
Uh-huh. They can feel guilty for needing a break from their art and passion. Are you adding us, Kyle? Are you adding us? Whoo!
Like Kyle's adding me.
That
But
is
yes,
so
I feel
true.
that with Soultry, and my therapist would also co-sign because for a long time, y'all, Soultry's now 5 years old. For a long time, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I had work," and then, "Oh, Soultry," and she was like, isn't that work? That's your business. I'm like, no, that's different. Blah blah blah. Or because we're creative, or we're doing an event, or we're doing a workshop, or whatever. And she was like, it's work.
Yeah,
So
like, I
I've
have
now reprogrammed myself to be like, oh, I'm working and I work again. It's not necessarily always the best of balance, but at least I know now I have work and then I clock into work numero dos.
Yes, yes, because me and Tony, like, sometimes we'll have events on the weekend, and we won't we're like, "Why are we so tired on Monday? Because we had an event on Sunday. We didn't
I'm
have a
like,
regular
I have
weekend."
work.
Yeah,
That's what I
so
thought recently. Like, but even teaching yoga, I've been teaching yoga in person on the weekends in DC. And I'm like, why am I so tired? You work. You work. But I'm like, it's a restful space for other people. This is your job. So I
well,
had to
that's
check
also
myself even
workaholism.
recently.
Workaholism is, like, not every hobby needs to be a business, right? Like, that's also part of that, but let's move on to this
Last thing I'll say
bottom
about that
line.
is I've learned to, yeah, have kind of a bottom line and boundary with my workaholism while having breaks. So even the last couple weekends, I've had events on the weekend. Then after my event, I'll just dedicate just free time. Like I will not plan anything. So if I want to be just a little sloth on my couch, I can do that. So I have been a little bit better of creating space for rest since I know ahead of time that I have work.
And if y'all are into this work culture, I guess you can identify with the word bottom line instead of boundary.
Right? It's like so like aggressive kind of language. Yeah, some of her language would be feeling really outdated. I'm like,
Yeah,
what's going
bottom
on
line.
here?
I'm like, all right, cool. But you go ahead and share the quote tone.
Yeah, so boundary is another way to say bottom line. And we also read the book Set Boundaries, Find Peace. So you can go to our book club replays and watch that book club we did with Nedra Glover Tawab's book. But these specific behaviors make for more immediate recovery than a vague, generic resolve to do better. And I feel like she was adding me because I've been talking about having better sleep routine for like and it wasn't until this book that I actually now have put that into practice because I've created boundaries because I had to wake up and do my pages. Okay. So like
Mhm.
it's true when she says you need to make more immediate recovery, we need specific and attainable goals, right? Not just oh next year, right? Like when people think of like New Year's resolutions or even intentions. With the spring equinox, we create intentions. With summer solstice, we create intentions in our community. And we do tell people to be specific because if you're manifesting, you're like, oh, I want to manifest a better life. That doesn't really resonate with like I want to manifest, going on my dream trip.
Mhm.
That hits a little different, right?
Yes.
So it's like even in the language we use for ourselves, the more specific we are, the better it is for our recovery.
Yes, and because workaholism is something a lot of people are in denial of, Julia Cameron gave us a workaholism quiz. I'm not gonna read
Yes.
I'm not gonna read all of them, but I felt very added, and so an example, I'll just read the first 5. I work outside the office seldom, often, never.
I work outside of office hours.
So I work outside of office hours seldom, often, never. I cancel dates with loved ones to do more work. Seldom, often, never. Because she's like, it's not that you never do it. She's just like, seldom, often, never. Because best believe most of us are. Just like Geneva was saying, because of our society. And I postpone outings until the deadline is over. Seldom, often, never. I take work with me on the weekends. Seldom, often, never. I take work with me on vacations. Seldom, often, never. I take vacations. Seldom, often, never. My intimates complain I always work. Seldom, often, never. I do 2 things at once. I try to do 2 things at once. Seldom, often, never. I'll stop there. But yeah, you get the gist. It's really getting you to really face the music, to acknowledge, because she's saying if we don't acknowledge these blocks, we're never going to get past them. And one
Hmm.
of the main ones we have in this world, capitalism, is workaholism. We've normalized
Exactly.
working for other people and not doing the work, like Geneva was saying, on ourselves and our
Hmm.
creative spiritual practices. So
Right? Yeah, yeah, even just, like, in our culture these days, like it's more acceptable to be like, I can't, I have work versus to be like, I can't because I have a rest break. Right? Like, oh, I can't because I'm, resting. People are gonna be like, what? And I've experienced that in my current workplace. Like sometimes, yeah, the way I live my life and my lifestyle, I'm trying to cultivate more rest. It gets kind of pushed back, or people are just always like, what is that? And so I appreciate having the quiz of the workaholism because I resonated. It was a lot that I was like, I have to be real. I was like, Tony, this is no one's looking at this. You need to be real with yourself of like which ones are you doing so you can just um realize and be self-aware. So I appreciate that about the book too, is that she has these quizzes and things so we can do a self-assessment, right? This is if it's a lot of our first time with the book, we can use this as our, self-assessment, like when we go to a doctor and they run your blood test to just see where you're at. And then, you can revisit these quizzes in like let's say a couple weeks, 6 months, a year from now. To just see like if anything has shifted. Like I know thinking about this quiz that there's some things that like a year or maybe 2 to 4 years ago, I definitely was like a often, or always. And then now there's some stuff I'm like, "Oh, that's so." I'm like, "Oh, look at me." Like, I'm better at that. And there's some stuff that I'm
Mhm.
like, "Girl, are you still doing that?" So, I did appreciate having the quiz so we can't fake the funk, okay?
Yes, you know what you just said, it came to mind as number 16. I place my creative dreams before my work.
Mhm.
Seldom, often, never. So then the second one's kind of flipped the other way. I prioritize my day to include an hour of creative work play.
Mhm.
Seldom, often, never. I allow,
Mhm.
so she has some of those like the shifting tides, which brings me
Mhm.
to Geneva's comment of, but some of those questions have systematic barriers not discussed in the book. Most people want to go on vacations, but don't have the time or money.
Mhm, that's a
Yeah,
good point, and especially because Julia Cameron was a white woman that has relative privilege than
right.
most of us. But
Yeah,
for
but
me, some of those things, I think of it more of like, for vacation, I just think of time off, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a lavish, luxurious thing, but, like, do I make time to be off and just do whatever I wanna do, whether
it
that's just resting in my house.
it makes me think of Trisha Hershey, the Nap Ministry of like
Mhm,
reworking what vacation is, what resting is, and it's not have to be a spa day or a lavish thing.
mhm,
It could be literally, like you said, sitting on your couch, closing your eyes, taking a nap. So I definitely
mhm.
feel like she didn't have that context for sure on
Yeah.
top of this. I think she really meant vacation, probably, but yeah. So it's important to uh think about those creative ways to feel that rest and recovery. And then Kyle shares, before I got to a unionized workplace and left grad school, LOL.
Mm.
I was
Mhm.
definitely in the often category on most of these. Yeah.
Right,
Hmm.
and it's hard, but it's like I
Hmm.
appreciate the quiz to just kinda check in and be like, "Okay, this is where we're at, and then how can we prioritize rest," right? How can we prioritize creative play in our days? So for me, I'm using this kind of like a springboard to remind myself of my bottom lines that I created, of these boundaries, so I can know that, like, "Tony, you're not trying to go back into workaholism. We're recovering, remember?" So I'm using these as a reminder of my own goals and what I'm striving for.
I also appreciate in this chapter she talked about drought, which at first I was like, what does that have to do with blocks? But then sometimes a block feels like a drought because it's that prolonged.
Mhm.
And it's not like you're avoiding a certain thing. You just no longer feel like you can access. And so she talked a little bit about the morning pages. So this quote is, for all creative beings, the morning pages are the lifeline, the trail we explore,
Mhm.
and the trail home to ourselves. And I definitely feel the benefits of morning pages and how it has been a trail back to myself, especially when I reread it.
Definitely. And with the drought section, she's talking about how, like, yeah, with the in these parts of our creative journeys, that sometimes it just feels so tough. Like it feels like nothing is coming to us, or we're feeling like hopeless or despair, like those kind of things. But she's saying how droughts are necessary, not necessarily in the fact that like you have to feel this terrible feeling, but more like through this drought, we get to the next point, which is the next quote I want to share. So, to write, WRITE, is to write, RIGHT things sooner or later, our pages will bring the things right. A path will emerge. And I really resonate with this quote because one of my mentors and past professors, Dr. Jamita Barlow or Dr. J, we had a class that I took in grad school, literally called Writing with a W slash Writing with an R, Black Women and Girls Health. And the whole class was about writing um, through, writing essays, reading Black feminist and Black womanist texts in order to write RIGHT, our pathways to liberation. And it was one of my favorite classes I've ever taken. And I did feel like through that class, she really is about the writing process to create paths of, liberation, of healing for ourselves. And yeah, through that experience, I felt that healing process. And I felt like, oh, Julia Cameron is touching on that. So I do want to ask Dr. J, like, did you ever read Artist Way? Like, she kind of
Mhm.
talks about the process that you do. Because my mentor, she calls it right healing. So WRITE healing. And I think that's essentially what Morning Pages is right healing for ourselves, by ourselves, and with creator. And a lot of times we don't even have to share what we're writing, but through that process is how we're healing ourselves.
Mhm. And I feel like we were talking about, like, earlier media deprivation, and she talked about during that time, like, don't even read, like, only write
Mhm.
and only, just do other things. Like, you can listen to music, you can write, but don't take anything in. And I used to always, like, when I was younger, like, read all these self-help books and like, I'm trying to find something, and I would try to find things in books. But writing, I've had like bigger breakthroughs in my writing. And I appreciate that this book is about like recovering a
Mhm.
spiritual path. And a significant portion is us just free writing. Yes, there's like
Mhm.
these chapters, but have you noticed the chapters sometimes are getting shorter and shorter at the end? And it's more about these reflections, these writing
Mhm.
practices, like just being in the state of like uh being that artist or recovery. So I was
Yeah.
like,
Or
that's
the word I thought
interesting.
of was processing. I think she's giving us more time
Processing.
to process, right?
Yes.
Because in the beginning, she's kind of like setting us up, right? This is what we're expecting, like, to let us know kind of how it's going to go. And then there was the parts where we're like, okay, we're in it. We're trying to figure out. It's like when you're riding a bike, you're like, okay, I'm still kind of wobbly. And now it's like, okay, now you can ride and feel the breeze on ourselves.
You know what? You know how computers have a processor, and the faster your
Hmm.
processor, you don't buffer, you can play them games. I'm thinking like writing is having a faster processor. If we're able to write, we're
Hmm.
able to process things and they don't stay here and blocked. They actually flow. And that's how we're able to like filter it out. So I'm like, process. It just things are coming into my mind, but I need to stay focused
Yeah.
because yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Uh,
share some things from the chat. So Geneva shares, just like nature, drought and barrenness of winter to the flourishing and new life of spring. Yes, I did identify with that too, especially reading again week 10 during the spring equinox. Again, I feel like the serendipity and synchronicity of this journey in our Soultry community, we can't make this up. But yes, this like we're going from, winter and hibernation, doing less, slowing down to spring, which is a transition season, right? We're gearing up for summer solstice, but this transition to just honor that, like, we're in the space where things are just sprouting. Some seeds are still germinating, and to just give ourselves time as well. Like, we don't have to be at the summer solstice yet. We're just in spring equinox. We're just becoming anew, just feeling the nice breeze. So I feel like that was grounding. So thank you, Geneva, for sharing that.
yes, I love that context. Um, and then Kyle shares multiple times this week when I haven't gotten to my pages until the afternoon, I felt more blocked until I started them, and then things would get going.
I feel that. Yeah. I feel like the
Mhm.
days I don't write, I notice it more now than I would have before.
And so, yeah, then
And
oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say there's another comment here. So drought reminds so this is Sultry Mama. So she says, drought reminds me of dry soil ready to receive rain and get the seeds ready to later sprout. Right? So just like
Mm.
nature, what Geneva and Sultry Mama are talking about, is like everything kind of has its purpose, right? Everything has its life cycle. So it's also a reminder, like, if you are feeling like you're in a drought, that there's also spring that's coming, right? There's also water coming. And she talked about this, I think, in a different, it's either the artist way or my Earthcraft Oracle deck. One of them has talked about like also when you're in a desert, it can feel like there's nothing there, but also deserts have cactuses that also they sprout flowers and stuff
Oh, she
because
put
they're
that in this
able.
chapter.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, okay. I was like, I knew someone talked about it. That it, takes water from reservoirs underneath and uses that for its, its own life cycle. So also when we feel like we're in blocks, in droughts, in times of feeling more hopeless or down, that there's still places we can go for that support and for those reserves, to help us reach that next point.
Yeah, I found that on page 170. During a drought, emotions are dried up. Like water, they may exist somewhere underneath, but we have
Hmm.
no access to them. A drought is a tearless time of grief. We are between dreams, too listless to even losses we put. Okay, this is not where the this is not where it is. Like I'm like, where is it? Oh yeah, yeah, right here it goes. She goes, droughts are long, airless seasons of doubt that make us grow, give us compassion, and blossom as unexpectedly as the desert with sudden flowers. Hmm.
Exactly. So yeah, just like nature, we are reminded that we have seasons, we have different cycles, so it's okay. And again, without going to kind of the next section. So the next section is fame. And so talking about self-protection, I was like, oh, okay, fame. Like I kind of knew where she was going with this, but it is always interesting to see how she titles stuff. And so the first quote I wanted to share was, focusing on fame creates a continual feeling of lack. There is never enough of the fame drug. Wanting more will always discredit our accomplishments and erode our joy at another's accomplishment. So again, that feeling of lack, which can then lead us to reach for a block, right? So if we're focusing on fame, like, oh, this person got this opportunity that I thought I was going to get. Oh, then let's reach for a block or a crutch or a vice. And then it just continues that cycle of us
Hmm.
not being our authentic self, right?
Yeah. Rephrasing this for post smartphone, focusing on followers creates a continual feeling of lack. There's never
Hmm.
enough followers, never enough of the follower. Yeah. Wanting more will always discredit our relationships and erode our joy at another's relationship.
Yeah, and in this section, before it was like at the beginning of fame, I already wrote a note on the side about fame, and then I put how we're perceived, and then she literally goes and talks about perceptions. I felt that was kind of serendipitous
Hmm.
for my brain working on this, um, and because that's when she's talking about like the fame drug. It's for me, I was really thinking about like how we're perceived, right? Like we want to be
Hmm.
recognized for our accomplishments. We want people to see us, right? A lot of us want to feel seen. And she's talking about how sometimes that can be the thing that's getting in the way of us actually doing the creative act that we want.
Yeah. And she calls fame a spiritual drug as well.
And then Kyle
Hmm.
shares in the comments, I had that note in mind as well. Social media has become a little fame machine for all of
Hmm.
us, right? Like if then also when you post on social media, it's different from when it first started. When Instagram and all these things first started, you just post and you just like, okay, it's up there. I just have a photo that I like. But now it's like, oh, how many likes? And I know people who will take posts down if it doesn't get enough likes. And that's why also I think they took off, you can option out of having your likes there because that does cause some people to feel negative feelings.
Yeah, and that I'm like, that's wild. I didn't even know that part, but that's wild. Um, the next quote we want to share is the only cure for the fame drug, which is we're talking about that spiritual drug, is creative endeavor. Only
Mhm.
when we are being joyfully creative can we release the obsession with others and how they're doing. And so this social media deprivation, y'all, and just being in like when I take these social media day offs, because I don't do like I'm not doing like a like how they had to do the week. I only did a day. And so now I want to incorporate on my day off doing that. And I'm like, yeah, it's a great way to release that obsession of like what other people do. There's no more FOMO when you ain't on the phone. No more.
Exactly. And something I've also tried to prioritize for myself is like if um if we are if I'm thinking about other person or comparing myself to another person, then I just remind myself like, okay, let me just do something that I know I like doing. Because again, we talked about I think last week and the week before of like, to heal through these things is the creation itself. And I feel like that has helped me a lot.
Yeah, and I remember, like, when I was in college, a lot of people used to ask me, like, "Are you gonna go on the show so you then can dance?" When I tell them I'm a dancer, and I'm like, "That's not the only way to be acknowledged as a dancer." And I remember, like, that being me during my in my 20s being, like, really, chasing certain things that would be the perception of a successful dancer. And now, like, I don't have that affiliation anymore, but fame did have a, an influence in the things I pursued. So I was like, oh wow, it is a drug. It's a spiritual drug, and it definitely set me on a different path. Mm.
Hmm. So the last section we'll talk about is competition. And so thank you all for staying with us this long.
Yeah, we
If
taking
you gotta,
time.
yeah, if you gotta hop off, that's fine. There'll always be the replay, but this is our last section, and then we got three more quotes we're gonna share, then we'll wrap it up. But for competition, we have no problem. And then Kyle says, yeah, letting go of competition is crucial for building so much internal security. Yes,
Mhm, mhm.
definitely. So the first quote we wanted to share is the desire to be better than can choke off the simple desire to be. Exactly. Because when we're thinking about other people, right? Like, oh, okay, they did this post. Oh, I need to do this post. Or, oh, this person auditioned for this thing. I need to do this. Oh, this person got this opportunity. I need to do this. This person did this vacation. And it's just like, just do you, boo boo. Okay. That's why that phrase is do you. Okay. Like,
I think that's why the whole sharing your art practice on social media can literally stop you from even pursuing creative endeavors if you don't if you're measuring your the things you make to people on the internet. It's like, no, make it for make sake. Do it, create for creation's sake. I like this other quote too, that we are the origin of our art. Originality is the process of remaining true to ourselves. That is original. Not
mhm.
the so what we make is like almost like the I want to say the symptom, but like the product of being original. So it's like I don't have the words for it, but I liked how she contextualized like originality is being true to yourself, and what you make is the effect of you being true to yourself. It's a reflection, an embodiment of that
Yeah, it's kind of like
versus.
the quote Geneva shared at the beginning of our live, right? It's like being true to yourself. And again, because when we compare ourselves, like honestly, in this world, we're in 2024. We're not really creating anything original, right? Like a lot of many of us, we are always inspired by something, even if we're in nature and inspired by a thing that's coming from somewhere else. It's coming from an external source. And then we're taking
Mhm,
that and then using that as inspiration to create our thing. So, like, yeah, there's nothing quite original, but I think sometimes when it comes to fame, fortune, and competition, when she talks about in the book, you want to be the first and the best of the thing. And she's like, that's what's hindering
that's
our
ego.
creative openness. Yes, because that's ego, that's envy, right? Of like, oh, that person was first. Well, I'm going to do this other thing and be first. It's like, just do you. Just do you. Like, still, it's like, if you want to do a thing and it's coming wholeheartedly from your authentic inner self, that when you release that, the people will know who know you will be like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Like this is like authentic to Tony or whatever.
Mhm,
So I think it made me think of the phrase also, like comparison is the thief of joy, right? Like
mhm.
when you compare yourself, like you can be excited about a thing and then realize like, oh, that person has, this thing. When you actually could just be present, and be with yourself. And I think that's what this creative journey is about too, is about letting go of like our attachments to the external and really turning inward. Because with this creative recovery, when she talks about the origin is within us, right? And remaining true to ourselves, that's nothing that another person can tell us. That's nothing another person can show us. That's nothing that somewhere else will give to us. It's from creator in ourselves, and we are creator. Creator is us.
Yeah, and I also wanna add, I feel like being having that competitive mindset also takes the joy of receiving other people's creations. Like
Mhm.
if you're criticizing, like, I could do it better or whatever, it just takes away the experience of someone else's work. And so that's something that I realize, like, oh, I really enjoy people's work when I'm not thinking in that way, when I'm really just witnessing someone else's work and just
Mhm.
and resonating and letting it be about where it sits with my emotions and senses versus like what it's supposed to how it's supposed to inform what I do. I'm like, it doesn't have to inform anything.
Yeah, and I think also so it's like unlearning competition and, like, relearning coexistence, right? Like, we all could just coexist. We don't have to compete, we don't have to be better than, we don't have to do any of this stuff, we could just coexist,
Yes.
and that kinda goes to what she's talking about, like, we make excuses for our avoidance, excuses focused on others, right? So, again, of, like,
Mhm.
looking at the external when we really just go inward, that is the journey
Mhm.
that we're on, especially this is very pertinent when we're talking about blocks, especially.
Yes, especially when we talk about blocks. And then Geneva shares, and often if you don't get the social media praise you wanted, it can deter you from future creations and expression. Yes, creating for personal and spiritual fulfillment has to be the foundation. I couldn't agree more.
Mhm.
It has to be for self.
Oh,
Hmm.
and I liked this quote in the book. It was on page 175, one of the quotes on the side. So it said, "He who knows others is wise. He who knows himself is enlightened." Lao Tzu,
Mm.
right? So it's like when you're focused on others, yes, you can know a lot about something, you can know a lot about another person. But what about yourself? And again, we're talking about enlightenment. That's part of the spiritual recovery, all these
Mhm.
things. So I just really appreciated this section. And then she also talks about um, creative flow and how sometimes we ourselves are hypercritical of ourselves, or also we might prematurely share our creations with someone who, again, is those harsh critics that we talked about in previous weeks, and that can block the creative flow because we're comparing ourselves through this competition, whether someone is telling us that we're not good enough or we're telling ourselves internally we're not good enough.
Mhm.
And so I feel that too, because sometimes, like, whether I'm taking pictures or I'm creating something or writing, I'll just put it away, don't look at it. And then in like a couple weeks, in a month, in a year, I'm like, oh my God, that was so cute. Or oh, look at that. Oh, I love that piece that I wrote. But like in the moment, sometimes you just get super critical with yourself.
Mhm.
So I appreciate also this artist way journey of like, again, when we talk about the process is the doing, the quantity, right? It doesn't, we don't have to hyper judge or prematurely judge ourselves for the quality of it. Just get it out there. Like just put it on the page, just move your body, just create that art. And eventually, when you look back and reflect and come from your own previous reservoirs and collections from your morning pages or from what you do without showing it to others, then that's when you get, something that you do want to share.
And that brings us to our closing quote, what you just
Mhm.
said. Showing up for the work is the win that matters. So, how are y'all feeling after reading chapter 10?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Again, like it was one of those chapters I was like, ooh, like I had a lot of downloads, a lot of insights, reflections, self-awareness after this chapter. For me, I had so much I even like wrote it on the margin, but for my reflections for the week is like letting go of limiting beliefs, fears, and blocking behaviors that inhibit creative flow and freedom. Because for me, I
Mm,
feel like these blocks limit my freedom.
mhm,
And then showing up for myself. So being you, being gentle. I appreciate that she talked about gentleness and affirming yourself. So again, it's that like personal empowerment that's not relying on external. And then I thought was important with the title chapter of protecting yourself from this doubt, from envy, from ego, and protecting yourself from the need for perceived recognition.
mhm.
Um, and protecting yourself by having these creative boundaries that support your flow. So I was just like, oh, this is just another great chapter, like all the other weeks, but I really did resonate with this one.
Yeah, when I think of self-protection, the image I'm getting is the hermit.
Mm.
And in tarot, I used to think of the hermit as like, oh, that's a bad thing. But no, like the hermit has this beautiful protective shell that it can go
Mhm.
into. And so I'm thinking for me, and like I'm creating like a bigger shell for me to hermit my creative
Mhm.
endeavors. And like, you know, hermits can come out and all that. So, but yeah, the image that's coming to me right now with sense of protection is like the shell or the boundaries that we create, like you were saying. But yeah.
Mhm.
So hopefully you all have a beautiful shell that
Yes.
you can exist in and protect your creative self. It
Yes. So
goes with
thank
you.
you. Thank you all for joining and for staying the course of this book club. Of course, all the book club replays are up on our YouTube channel. And you can go to our website, soultrysisters.com/book club to get all the important information that you need. And we shared it last week, but I want to remind everyone that we'll go up to week 12, and that will be on April 3rd. And then we have a special surprise. So on April 10th, the week after we finish the book, we'll have a community chat. So we're going to have a couple folks come on here on video, like we are, to share their insights from the book, to share their experiences, and to just be able to chat more about how the book has landed and impacted you all. So we're really excited. So don't forget to follow us on all platforms at Soultry Sisters. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can be in the know of what's happening. And of course, if you're in the San Diego area, check out our events. And we have our silent disco happening this Friday to celebrate Alyssa's birthday and as a fundraiser for our summer solstice annual festival that's happening this June. And if you want to celebrate the equinox with us, you can join us at Community Roots Farm this Sunday for our Soulscape mindful movement practice. And there's going to be a bunch of other awesome activations on the farm. It's in our hometown. So we're really excited to have all these amazing offerings with these amazing spaces in North County, San Diego. So check out our website, like and subscribe. And of course, if you can't join, then you could definitely donate. Thank you all who have donated already. We keep seeing them trickle in. So we're so appreciative of our Soultry community. We feel the love and we just want to say thank you. But we'll see you next time, this um, same place, same time next week.
Bye, y'all.